The moment the store lights dimmed and the doors locked, fear crept in like a cold shadow that refused to leave. What should have been the quiet end of a long shift turned into a nightmare when laughter filled the aisles, cruel, careless laughter that made a young cashier's hands tremble as she realized she was no longer safe. She had no idea that Hope was still inside the store, standing quietly in leather jackets and steel-toed boots, watching everything. Before the story unfolds any further, take a moment to pause. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and standing up for those who cannot defend themselves, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps stories like this reach hearts that need them. She was young, exhausted, and counting the minutes until she could go home. The store had finally closed, the automatic doors locked, and the bright fluorescent lights hummed softly overhead. Her shift had been long, filled with impatient customers and aching feet, but she was proud of herself for making it through another day. This job was not just work, it was survival. Every paycheck helped keep the lights on in her small apartment and food on the table. She straightened the counter, wiped it down slowly, and tried to ignore the heaviness in her chest that always came when she was alone at night. That was when they approached. A group of men who had been lingering too long, pretending to browse, now surrounded the counter. Their presence felt wrong immediately, like the air itself had thickened. Their laughter echoed too loudly, their movements careless and invasive. She tried to stay calm, reminding herself that she had done nothing wrong, that she only needed to finish closing procedures and call for her ride. But fear does not listen to logic. Fear claws its way into your thoughts and freezes your body where you stand. Her hands shook as she reached for the register, her heart pounding so hard she could feel it in her ears. She wished someone would walk in, wished the store wasn't so empty, wished the night would end faster. The men leaned closer, mocking her discomfort, enjoying the power they felt in that moment. She felt small, exposed, and painfully alone. Tears burned in her eyes, not because she was weak, but because she was human and terrified. What she did not know was that the store was not truly empty. Earlier that evening, a group of shows up late, night snacks, fuel drinks, and supplies for a long ride ahead. They were bikers, weathered by miles of road and years of life that had taught them hard lessons. They were the kind of men people judged at a glance. Leather jackets, heavy boots, quiet eyes, but beneath the rough exterior lived an unbreakable code. Respect was everything to them, and cruelty toward the helpless was something they never tolerated. They had noticed the change in atmosphere the moment the laughter turned sharp. They had seen the cashier's face pale, her posture tighten, the subtle signs of fear that only those who had known it themselves could recognize. Without words, without dramatic gestures, they understood what was happening. They stayed still, watching, waiting, not because they were unsure, but because timing mattered. The young woman felt her strength slipping. She tried to focus on her breathing, tried to remember that this moment would end, but the seconds stretched painfully long. Every instinct told her to run, yet her legs would not move. Her world had narrowed to the counter in front of her, and the threat closing in from all sides. She wondered if anyone would help, if anyone even cared. Then the energy in the store shifted. Heavy footsteps echoed down the aisle, slow and deliberate. One by one, the bikers emerged from the shadows between shelves, their presence impossible to ignore. They did not rush, they did not shout. They simply stood tall, forming a quiet wall of protection that instantly changed the balance of power. The laughter died mid-breath. Confidence drained from the men who moments ago felt untouchable. The bikers' faces were calm, but their eyes carried a message that needed no words. This was not a place for cruelty. This was not a moment that would be ignored. The men who had been harassing the cashier suddenly looked very aware of how small they were. Fear has a way of turning arrogance into silence, and silence filled the store like a held breath. The young cashier felt it first, the relief. It washed over her so suddenly her knees nearly gave out. She was no longer alone. She was no longer trapped. She stood there, shaking, tears finally spilling over, but this time they were not tears of fear alone. They were tears of gratitude, of disbelief, of a heart realizing it had been seen. The men backed away, stumbling over their own pride as they hurried toward the exit. They left behind nothing but the echo of their footsteps and the shame they carried with them. The danger passed as quickly as it had come, leaving the store quiet once more. The bikers did not celebrate, they did not demand thanks, they simply nodded, making sure she was okay before returning to their purchases. One of them stayed behind just long enough to ensure she could lock herself in the office and call for help. Their protection was not loud or dramatic. It was steady, respectful, and complete. As she sat alone afterward, the adrenaline slowly fading, she realized something profound. Kindness does not always wear a gentle face. Sometimes it comes wrapped in leather and scars, carried by people the world misjudges. Sometimes heroes are not the ones who speak the loudest, but the ones who show up when it matters most. That night changed her, not because something terrible happened, but because something beautiful interrupted it. She carried that moment with her into the days that followed. It gave her strength when she felt small, courage when fear whispered lies, and faith in humanity when she needed it most. The bikers rode out into the night soon after, their engines fading into the distance. They did not know her name, and she did not know theirs, but a bond had been formed in silence, a reminder that goodness exists, even in the darkest corners, waiting to step forward when needed. Stories like this remind us that the world is not as cruel as it sometimes feels, that for every act of harassment there is an act of courage waiting in the wings, that standing up for someone, even without words, can change a life forever. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you of the power of kindness and protection, please take a moment now to like the video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel. Your support keeps these stories alive and reaching those who need them most. Before this story ends, I have one special request. Please comment the word respect below if you believe that no one should ever feel afraid while simply doing their job. Because sometimes all it takes to restore faith in humanity is knowing that someone, somewhere, is willing to stand up and say enough is enough.